Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Captain America issue 24. And I really enjoyed this issue. My only kind of problems ran into the art style, because we got a shift from what we've been usually working with, and I didn't outright hate it. It's just sometimes the facial expressions and the kind of, how to put it, unfinished kind of nature of it in certain panels kind of threw me off. It's not the worst, but it's definitely going to take some getting used to. It did really work with dealing with like the Red Skull in this issue, and in certain action scenes worked very well with what we saw. So we'll kind of have to see how that goes going forward. So this starts off, and we see that, of course, this Tare fellow from in Madripoor with Alexander Lukin. He's pretty much being tortured and taken out by Lukin being the Red Skull. He's like, yeah, I don't give a shit about you, man. He's like, just let me go. He's like, nope. I've done all this horrible stuff. You're dealing with a man who's not a man, my friend. And it's like, ooh, that really sucks. And so now we've got that established that Lukin is now mucking around as the Red Skull. We've seen illusions and everything, but this is confirmation at this point. So Steve's going to have to deal with that. We again shift over to Sharon and Steve and Tony. Tony talking about how she's building an armor for Sharon, putting all different kinds of things into it. And she's like, yeah, just keep me updated and everything. Doesn't seem like there's going to be any time to like test that out properly, but I'm going to test myself out. And she has a sparring session with Steve, and it's really kind of funny because they do have an interesting back and forth. Because at first Steve's like, all right, he's not going, he's trying to calibrate himself to how Sharon is at the moment. She's like, yes, stop calibrating. He's like, all right, and then pretty much really starts going at her, and she's like, oh shit, having to actually kind of like deal with him and just kind of getting her used to her body and her fighting style. And it's really kind of good because you see first Steve's like, all right, I'm pretty much trying to figure out how I can spar with you again in this kind of state. She's like, no, actually give it to me. And then when he actually starts going, she's like, oh shit, and has to kind of compensate and kind of switch up her tactics, where Steve kind of like flips her off, and she's like does this backflip and pushes off from the wall and does a kick to him that's like, okay, that's pretty good. And of course Steve talks about how he was pretty much going 60% and being like, that was pretty different than what you'd usually been doing. It's like, yeah, sure, he pretty much understated what was kind of going on with that. And all right, it's kind of cool to see that Sharon has a couple more kind of tricks up her sleeve since she has been brought back to her regular age. It's like, all right, so it seems like it's not just base level. There's some other kind of things going on with this as well. We also, it's really kind of cool that we see that Sharon's dealing with this, as we see Lucan dealing with what's going on as well. He's talking with Alexa, and they're like, listen, I didn't come back by myself, and we kind of have to deal with this. I think the Red Skull's here. And oh yeah, what'd you think about death bringing you back? There's things that you kind of have to deal with here. And he's just like, what? I would have rather been dead. It's like, well, that's sure, you could feel that way. What they do a lot of jumping back and forth to kind of juxtaposition Sharon and Lucan. So let's kind of dive more into Lucan's at the moment. He's doing all this, and she's like, yeah, what do you expect? That's usually a one-way street, and we had to kind of like do something to kind of bring you back. He's like, I would have rather been dead. She's like, you're a man of history. You don't really get to deal with that. Have like your fires of hatred been cooled or whatnot? Because he doesn't really want to do this kind of stuff. And then Alexa's bringing him like, you got to do some shit, and you need this monster, as she just nonchalantly kills a waitress at the place that they're having lunch at. And he's like, what are you doing? Stop that. But they're like, oh yeah, you're a man of morals and principles. We need to use the monster of the Red Skull to achieve what we need to do. It's like, okay, this is kind of good that we're like diving into this and getting this kind of out of the way. I would rather like to get more of an idea of what's kind of going on with the Power Elite and their plan, because that's taking a lot of the back seat at the moment, and I would like that to kind of come to the forefront, though we do need them exploring these kind of aspects because of the fallout that they can have with the ramifications of the story. So that's pretty much where we're done with the Red Skull and Lucan at the moment. We see that Steve and Sharon have a meal from the Smells Chicken place, and it's kind of funny being like, yeah, that we can kind of have ourselves back into a kind of better space, because Steve was even wondering what would they do to kind of get her back into a kind of place like that. And she, of course, is like, yeah, I want to explore this with you, but the thing is, Shuri wasn't overstating what was going on with having everything with what Selene had taken from all those people. And she's like, there's a lot of business, and I can hear the voices of these victims of Selene, and they want me to avenge them. And then we see that they're out on the porch at night, and she's like, listen, it kind of like dives into her talking about her kind of views of her life at S.H.I.E.L.D. And she's like, okay, I did all these things, but I was like 1,000 feet in the air, and what Hydra did with even your face spoke to something in America, and I haven't really been on the ground with the people for a while until we've been dealing everything with you. And of course I didn't know how you would take Peggy, the Daughters of Liberty, all that kind of jazz and everything. So that was a thing she had to think about. And then after going through all these things and talking with the people, she's like, yeah, I kind of have a better idea of what I need to do. I want to help people and still do this even though S.H.I.E.L.D.'s kind of gone. And she brings up that like her and Steve are like an agency of like two. It's like, yeah, we're the agency, baby, we got this. And it's really kind of cool to get her back into a kind of positive mind frame of the work that her and Steve and the rest of the Daughters of Liberty are doing. Now, in the beginning, we did see that Tony had gotten a bead on Misty's arm in Madripoor, but it had lost in this kind of Warren zone in Madripoor. Well, after they're done kind of talking up, Tony's like, hey, okay, I kind of got Misty's back, and then we see some panels kind of detailing what's going on with Ross, Peggy, Black Widow, and Misty as they're pretty much getting screwed over in that place in Madripoor. They like pop back up, and then it went back down kind of near Hightown and whatnot. So it was kind of close to a place that can be used for the negative zone before we see that they are captured and that the Red Skull is behind it. I'm like, alright, seems like we're going to be going. And we see Sharon looking at the new armor, is like, okay. Now, it would be interesting to see her like deal with this stuff without the armor, but depending upon what kind of things that they're going to be going up against, she is going to need the armor to tactically be able to take on certain kind of threats that this power elite could possibly field. And now we've got them set up to go to Madripoor and kind of deal with more forcefully what's going on with Lucan. The Lucans, the Red Skull, and kind of get more information from Ross, and kind of hopefully that opens up more stuff going on with the Power Elite. And I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully this kind of picks up a little bit more. I don't mind a slow burn. I do like espionage and intrigue and everything, and I do like what they've been dealing with character-wise is with like Selene and her whole plot. Sharon getting back to her place and being young again, well, being her kind of accurate age, more like, and Lucan dealing with being brought back as this kind of Jekyll and Hyde persona, and he's like, this thing fights, and I go to sleep and I see the victims, and it's really kind of crazy to see Lucan like, this stuff unnerves me. So hopefully he might actually be of use in this battle and might help our heroes stop the Red Skull. So we'll have to see how that kind of works out. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.